How was traffic coming from Athens?
Actually, it's not bad.
Which way did you come?
75 down, got off on 27.
You didn't go through Calhoun?
Mm-mm.
If you did, you'd been writing your ticket.
Probably, quite possibly, yes. No, rainy days, it's better coming down here, just take the interstate than go through there. To me, from my experience.
It's probably quicker, isn't it?
Not coming from my house, which is where I came from. So
Are you from the other side?
I live in Riceville.
Ah.
So for me to get to Cleveland, well, depending on which part of Cleveland, it's quicker for me to go into Charleston and then take Old Charleston Pike all the way down into Cleveland, depending on where I'm going.
Boy, that's it. So you're from Riceville.
I'm originally from Monroe County, but I've lived in Riceville for about 10 years now. But I'm originally from an area in Monroe County called Coker Creek. And if you're a motorcyclist, then you know where Coker Creek is. If you fish or hunt, you know where it is.
Now that is on the Dragons. Is that the Dragon's Tail?
No, the Dragon is 129, so that's heading up towards Sevierville, that area. Coker Creek is, all right, funny story. This is Cleveland, Church of God, right?
Mm-hmm.
Church of God started in Coker Creek. So R.G. Sperling is I'll have to remember, the genealogists in my family would just be tore out of the frame right now that I can't remember. He was my great uncle.
So he started.
I believe. Maybe wrong.
Now, if you go to Athens, you go down 411, you go to Etowah, and you go down Mecca Pike, and you take a ride on Unicoi Turnpike or something like that,
yes.
You end up at Coker Creek. To me, Coker Creek is from Ducktown to Tellico, right? About midway.
You have, yes, that's where it is. But you have all kinds of little communities in there. So you got Farner,
Hanging Dog.
yes, and then the old.
Now let's name them. You got McCaysville, then you got Copper Hill,
right? Ducktown,
Farner.
Now, depending on your generation, you've got Isabella in there.
Isabella.
And then
Turtletown.
Actually, it would be Ducktown, Isabella. My family in Polk County is going to be mad at me too. Isabella, Turtletown, then Farner.
And where's Hanging Dog?
Then Coker Creek.
Hanging Dog's
on the other way.
Kind of going down the hill.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Polk County. I was born in Polk County at Copper Basin. All right.
At the hospital?
At the hospital. Dr. Lee delivered me. If you talk to most people of my generation from Polk County, well, actually a lot of people from Monroe County, because see, Coker Creek, back when you had the mines in Polk County, there was actually a lot of stuff in Copper Hill, Ducktown, right?
They say Farner was at one time more populated than Cleveland.
I don't know about
like during the
Farner, maybe.
You ever heard of Rott's time?
No.
The Burra mine guy?
Yes. Burra mine, yes, that guy, no.
Yeah.
I don't know about Farner, but Ducktown, Copper Hill, that probably is true, because even when I was a kid, there was still a lot of stuff over there. I mean, there's not a whole lot now. Mine's pretty much closed down, but when I was a kid, there was a ton of stuff over there. But anyway, people from Monroe County, that was the closest doctor to them. Mm-hmm. So a lot of folks went over there, and that's where I was born. And whenever I'm in Polk County, I'll be like, hey, talking to people, and they're like, where are you from?
Yeah.
Well, in the South, where you're from is a broad statement, okay? But usually they mean where'd you grow up, but sometimes they're like, well, where were you born?
Yeah.
And when I say I was born in Polk County at Copper Basin, then they always say, well, who was your doctor? Well, it's Dr. Lee. Mm-hmm. Oh, mine too. So for people of my generation and older.
If you don't mind my asking, what is your generation, your age?
I've just turned 45. And I feel every year of it.
How'd you get to Athens from there?
So I went to college to be a police officer. That's actually why I went. And freak story. I'll tell you the story. All right.
Lay it on me.
All right. So I go to college and I graduate from college, and the federal government's hiring everybody they can lay their hands on at the time, especially law enforcement people. And I had a friend, actually, he's from Cleveland. His name is Chris Vaughn. If he ever sees this, I blame him in person, but now I'm blaming him for the masses. His dad was a pastor in the Church of God, a good guy. So Chris takes the LSAT, the Law School Admissions Test, and he tells me this is a horrible test. This is the worst test I've ever taken. So I cast aspersions on him and say it can't be that bad. And what do people do when you cast aspersions? They say, well, why don't you take it?
Yeah.
So I'm in college, he's in college, we're both getting ready to graduate, and I said, fine. So back then, taking the LSAT wasn't that expensive. Now apparently it's ridiculously expensive. So my story would not translate to anybody else now. So I go and I take the LSAT. I get me a donut and an orange juice, and I pay the whatever, and I go take the LSAT. So then, I don't know how it is now, but then you could choose 3 schools to send your LSAT scores to for free. It didn't cost you anything. I don't know about now. So I picked the University of Hawaii, the University of San Diego, and because I'm a Tennessee boy, the University of Tennessee College of Law. So I get done with the test, send my scores off, and I go on my way. So I graduate, the Department of Homeland Security says, hey, we'd love to have you come work for us. I said, all right, fine, great, that's what I want to do. And so there's a delay between getting that phone call and actually getting everything done to go to the Law Enforcement Training Center, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Glencoe, Georgia. And so I'm just hanging out. And I get a phone call, and it's a lady named Carolyn Dossett, who was the admissions coordinator then, I think she's retired now, at the University of Tennessee College of Law. And she said, usually, Stephen, people will decline if they're not coming to law school. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And she said, well, we sent you an admission letter. Are you coming or not? Mm-hmm. Never got it. I never got this letter. Mm-hmm. Literally, she calls because people are on waiting lists to, and they want to know, hey, listen, man, are you coming or not? And apparently it was very rare for you not to say, hey, I'm not coming. Didn't know that either. So I get it, and I think to myself, well, if I go and I like it, great. If I go and I don't like it, then I can go on my way. So call Homeland Security. I say, I've got this offer to go to law school. Will you guys hold my offer for a school year? And like I said, they were snapping up anybody they could get. They were desperate for people back then. So they said, fine, whatever. So I go to law school. I start dating a girl in law school. Huge mistake, because now I'm stuck in law school, and I get done with the first year, and everybody's like, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, apparently you go get a summer job because you're in law school, and I'm dating this girl, so what do you do? So I actually interned with the district attorney's office. Jerry Estes was the DA back then, so I interned in the DA's office. And all of my curriculum at the University of Tennessee was geared towards being a prosecutor, because if I wasn't going to be a cop, then I was going to be a prosecutor. So that's all of my curriculum was geared towards that. So get done, summer interning in the DA's office, go back to law school. You're now in your second year. Get done with the second year. Everybody says, well, now what are you going to do? Well, you get a job clerking. So I clerked for a criminal attorney up in Knox County. His name's Dennis Francis. Biggest Democrat you'll ever meet. Used to make fun of me all the time because I'm a Republican. So we had, interesting political
Republican
discussions.
from Polk County.
Well, and he would born in Polk County. Now, see, I was raised in Monroe County. So
Right,
when you say where you
that's right.
from,
That's right.
right?
Different, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so I clerked for him. Handled a lot of criminal criminal matters as a law clerk for him, research, things of that nature. Now you're in your third year. It's your final year. So now what do? Well, you finish out your third year because you're that close, so you may as well go ahead and get the law degree. And then you're done with it. So now what? Well, now you take the bar. Well, now you pass the bar, so now what are you going to do? You may as well be a lawyer. So Jerry Estes was still the DA. He offered me a job. I actually came to Cleveland. I spent right at 7.5 years, 7 3/4 years as a prosecutor, and met my wife. She was a Department of Children's Services worker down here, and we wanted to live somewhere with land. Riceville had a lot of land, so we bought a house, remodeled it, which is why I said, and that's how I ended up in Riceville. So having an office in Athens, just sort of, it's kind of a satellite office for a law firm that's in Monroe County. So they have an office in Monroe County and they have an office in Athens. So close to the house, there you go. Just sort of the meandering path of life. So that's how I ended up there.
But Riceville's not far from Coker Creek.
No, it is.
The way the crow flies. How long does it take?
As the crow flies, no.
Yeah.
Driving up there is about an hour.
Is that right?
Yeah, because depending on which way you want to go, the quickest route if I have my wife and daughter in the car is take Etowah, Mecca Pike, up 68 into Coker Creek. The actual quickest way to go is to turn off, go across Tye Mountain, but it is hairpin turns.
Is that Kimsey Highway?
No, that's in Polk County, so that's on the other side. So you would, if you were going to take Kimsey Mountain, you'd be on the other side of the Hiwassee. So you can get there, you know how they say you can't get there from here? Well, you can get there from there, but I would be then going down through Delano, cutting across, and then coming across Kimsey Mountain on the backside to come into Coker Creek, as opposed to the other side. Coker Creek is, well, for people who know, is basically just surrounded by mountains. I mean, there's mountains on every side of it. It's just kind of a...
What's in Coker Creek? So you were really raised in Coker Creek?
Yes, I grew up in Coker Creek.
What's the population, would you say? Or is that just an unincorporated area?
It's an unincorporated area. I wouldn't even begin to guess what the population is. So when I was a kid, what drew a lot of people to Coker Creek was logging. There's still sawmills up there. I think there's one sawmill left, but when I was a kid, there were several. And then most people, their families moved in there. There was a CCC camp up there, Civilian Conservation Camp. So that's what got quite a few people there, other than the original settlers. I think 1764, I think, is when my family.
What was the draw to that? Was logging the draw there before the CCC camp?
Well, farming. People moved in there. They came. So if you look at the immigration in the 1700s, people came to the mountains of North Carolina, crossed the mountains over into Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Well, my family did the same thing. Yeah. So
what was the draw?
Well, I mean, it's good farmland. You can grow tobacco. When I was a kid, there was a ton of tobacco fields up there. It grows great tobacco.
As growing up, what was in Coker Creek as far as there's not a movie theater, right?
There wasn't when I was a kid. Apparently, there actually was at one time, because, like I said, the population in that area would get bigger, smaller, and apparently during one of the larger times, there actually was a movie theater there. There were a couple of convenience stores, gas stations when I was a kid. I think there's one up there now. I believe it's on 68. But there were, so Coker Creek was divided into communities, and each of the communities for the most part, had schools. So Ironsburg is one. Epperson is another. Sandy Lane is another. Altoona is another. And those were different communities in Coca Creek, all of which is unincorporated.
In the middle of nowhere, sort
Pretty
of.
much, yeah.
Where'd y'all go grocery shopping?
Either to Polk County, to Ducktown, or after I got older, we would go to Madisonville, because you had, I barely remember, but the Walmart in Madisonville used to be a Big K, not to be confused with Kmart.
Yeah, Big K.
Two different things. So then it became a Walmart. So you had Walmart.
So it was about as close to go to Madisonville
as it was to go to Polk County from where we lived. Yes.
So, because there really wasn't a grocery store in Polk County at the time, was there? I mean, it seems like there was. But.
Well, no, there was. I don't remember the name of it. It was in Copper Hill.
Did you feel?
But I don't remember the name of it.
Did you feel like you were young and didn't have? I mean, what was a Saturday night like in Coca Creek at 17 years old?
Well, now at 17, you're looking out, right? I mean, you're ready to go somewhere.
Yeah, but you're not. You're still there.
Well,
what are you doing?
But people had most people up there learned to drive when they were like 11, 12. Okay, because like me, we were always working at something. I mean, there was always work to be done, and so you learn to drive really, really young. And so by the time you're 17, you've got a license.
You're over it by then.
Well, I mean, there's a whole wide
So
world
what are you
out
doing
there.
what are you doing on Saturday nights in Coca Creek?
Well, usually you're
30 minutes from anything, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you're at somebody's house, you're hanging out, you're doing whatever.
What high school did you go to?
Tellico Plains.
Oh.
No high school on Coca Creek. So Coca Creek has an elementary school.
Did the bus run all the way out there?
To the high school, yeah.
That was a long bus ride, wasn't it?
It was about an hour. By the time everybody got delivered and everything, yeah.
Golly, can you imagine? That'd be like 2 extra hours to school.
Oh yeah,
Were you a bus rider?
I was my senior year because I graduated when I was 17. So when you ask me, hey, what are you doing at 17?
Yeah.
I was 17 when I graduated. So I was able to get my license when I was 16, which was the middle of my junior year, I guess, or maybe the start. Yeah, September of my junior year is when I was able to get my license. So once I was able to get a license, get a vehicle, then not riding the bus. And plus too, I mean, you could catch rides with people. Hey, you going home? Yeah, let me catch a ride with you. Different world back then. I mean, now I think people have to like.
But it's not that far ago. You're 45, that was 20 years ago? 25 years ago, something like that?
That was...
What do they do now, the kids that live in Coker Creek?
I think, I actually don't know. The school buses still run. And my guess, just looking at the population of as far as prosperity, things of that nature, I'm guessing most of those kids have cars. I don't know. I'm guessing they did.
I guess, but you to drive an hour to school, I guess
no,
it's a 30-minute drive, but by the time you do all the stops.
Yeah. I mean, it's you can be, from where my parents lived, or where my dad still lives, you can be at the high school if you drive a little faster than what someone might consider safe. You can be there in 20 minutes.
So your dad still lives in Coker Creek?
He does, yes. Yeah, both of my parents did. My mom died last year, but my dad still lives there. Same place.
Was she buried there in Coker Creek?
Yeah, actually, my grandma was a Massengill, and the Massengills have been there for a very long time, and we actually have our own cemetery up there. which I have no idea why I told you that. Oh, you asked me if she was buried
Yeah,
there.
she was buried there.
Yeah. So
Because your family, that's where they're rooted, Coker
yes.
Creek.
Yes. So yeah, she's buried in the family cemetery. People, it's kind of funny. My last name's Hatchet, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Hatchet's not a Coker Creek name. So when I talk to people,
But Massengill is.
Massengill is, and my grandma, who was a Massengill, married my grandpa, who was a Hamby. Well, those are both Coker Creek names. Everybody knows all those names.
Yeah.
But Hatchet most assuredly is not.
Where'd that come from?
Well, my dad is from Alabama. So just about every Hatchet in this country is a descendant of a guy named John the Immigrant Hatchet, who came into Jamestown, Virginia in 1630.
From where?
1677. Not really clear on exactly where he came from, either Wales or England, but it gets a little murky on where.
It's not
exactly.
really Irish. You don't have any Irish in you. I can sense there's really not any Irish. You're more of a Wales, maybe the answer.
Well, actually, I on my mom's side, it's Scots-Irish, all the way back to the home country. I actually, one of my relatives did a genealogy on our family, and we actually had a descendant that was at the Battle of Hastings. On the losing side. So, but yeah, it's Scots-Irish. I mean, I can run that. Throw in the Welsh. You can't tell it now, but because the gray hair's got me. But my my goatee, this part is actually red. The rest of it is dark brown.
That's what fooled me.
Yeah, the gray hair.
Why is it the Scotch are always Irish or have some red tint in their hair?
Now that I don't know.
But that's true, isn't it?
For the most part, yeah. Well, it's where the term Black Irish comes from. If it's because you don't have red, people don't realize that. But that's why.
Have you ever watched that documentary on the people that came, the Scotch Irish, how they came into the United States, and they came through the Alleghenies and through the North Carolina, and that's how we all ended up here.
Oh,
that's how we got our folk music and a lot of the stuff.
I've never seen it. I mean, I knew that was the immigration pattern just from family history and things of that nature.
But you weren't raised in a metropolitan area. You were raised in a small community, small. You think that helped you?
I think it taught me self-reliance. I think it taught me the importance of not wasting money. I think it taught me the importance of hard work. I think it taught me, I'll tell you, my dad was a construction worker. Worked construction most of his life. Well, I say most of his life, he's still alive. Started working at the sawmills up there around home after he got older. We weren't wealthy by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, not at all.
No need for money, I guess.
Well, I mean, you have need for money, but we weren't. But my dad did two things among all the other stuff that he did. He's a good man. He kept food on the table and he paid his taxes. So when I look at a lot of, just say, government waste, I think of my dad. And here's a man breaking his back, but he's paying his taxes. So
and they're wasting it on the other end.
Yeah, I mean, and then they get wasted. So growing up there, not being in a metropolitan area, I guess there are things. I mean, my daughter has been to more museums by the age of 8 than I had seen by the time I was in my 20s in different cities. She's been to more cities by the age of 8 than I had been when I was in my 20s. So if you look at what we'll go big picture, what America is supposed to be, that's me. Because my daughter is light years ahead of me. I'm light years ahead of my dad. My dad was light years ahead of his dad. Mm-hmm. His dad was a sharecropper down in Alabama. There was I don't know if you remember, but there was a big story about Hobby Lobby was selling cotton in their displays, and one of these groups came in and said that's indicia of racism and all of this. And I saw it, and I told my wife, I said, I should ask Dad about that. I said, because Dad picked miles and miles and miles of cotton, and I didn't just, but that's what it made me think of was, maybe it is, but I know my dad picked an awful lot of cotton when he was a kid and a young man.
Do you think people are losing their sense of self-reliance?
There's no question.
And what would that be today? I don't even know exactly. I mean, I don't change the oil in my car.
But you know how.
I know how.
And you could.
Your dad probably wouldn't take his car to get the oil changed, right?
He does now.
But back then.
Back then, no.
Remember when the Jiffy Lubes came out? But prior to that, on Saturdays, you
oil.
washed your car and you changed your oil and you mowed your yard and you did something at the house and got ready for church on Sunday.
No, my dad, up until the point that he's 80 or he's about to be 80. So he didn't change his oil. He ain't sliding up under a car, but it wasn't that long ago that he would still slide up under a car and change that oil. And so I think there's no question we're losing self-reliance. We're losing self-reliance because we are a prosperous nation. We're a prosperous community. Having to do it yourself is not something most people have to do, and that's just a fact. And if you don't have to do it, two things I think happen. Number one, you don't do it, but number two, you don't teach the next generation to do it. My daughter is going to know how to change her oil, she's going to know how to change a tire, and she's going to know how to drive a stick shift, period.
And you're not talking about just those things. You're talking about the mindset of it.
Yes, she will learn. I mean, I have this conversation with people all the time because I grew up. We had a garden when I grew up. Mm-hmm. Okay.
That was standard, right?
Well, it was standard for that area for the most part, but that was part of it. Is you had a garden, and you didn't have a garden just to be having a garden. You had a garden, and you ate what came out of that garden. If you didn't
plant a garden, would you almost feel guilty?
Well, no. Guilt didn't necessarily come into it. There was Coca Creek as a region. Now, there's some people up there who have more money, less money, but Coca Creek as a region, when I was growing up, it's not a wealthy place. I mean, it's Appalachia, okay? It is straight up Appalachia. So you had folks up there, if they didn't plant a garden, they was going to have trouble eating. They had to have a garden. You're, talking about the Scotch-Irish, one thing that will grow just about anywhere in East Tennessee is potatoes. Mm-hmm. You know how the song Rocky Top says corn won't grow?
Yeah.
Well, corn might not, but potatoes will.
Yeah.
You had a lot of, potato fields.
They got their corn from the jar.
Well, if they did, but like me growing up, we had a garden, we had potatoes. You was out there and you was getting potatoes out of that garden. That was part of it. I can't give to my daughter that experience. I can talk to her about it, but I can't give it to her. She'll never know that. I mean, she's, look at the world around us right now. iPhones, iPads, emails, hotspots. There's literally, all of this technological wonder. But what do you do if your car won't start? Right? When I was growing up, you fixed it yourself.
Well, you pushed it off and
that's right.
And
tried to
clutch it and all that stuff,
right? I mean, so I think there is, back to your original observation. There is a loss of self-reliance, and I think that's why, is because you don't have to do it, and if you don't have to do it, you're not going to do it, and if you're not doing it, then you're not getting the next generation to do it. And I think that's unfortunate for a lot of reasons, because one thing that makes America unique is self-reliance. One of our philosophers, because America doesn't have that many, is Ralph Waldo Emerson. Emerson wrote an entire treatise, called it Self-Reliance. It's ingrained in us.
Did he write that before he went to Walden's Pond or after?
That was Thoreau.
Thoreau
Went to Walden. Emerson, I don't know if Emerson ever went anywhere.
What did Emerson say?
Well, Emerson said a lot of stuff. I used to have a quote hanging on my door when I was at the district attorney's office, and I'm gonna butcher it because I haven't seen it in a long time. But it says, "All goes well as long as you run with conformists. But you who are honest men in other particulars know that there is alive somewhere a man whose honesty reaches to this point also, that he shall not kneel to false gods. And when you meet him, you sink into the class of counterfeits." And I've never, if you think about it, conformity is part of everything, right?
We do it all the time and don't know it.
Sure.
We don't know we're doing it.
When you go to church, you're engaging in conformity, right? It's a belief system.
If you don't believe that, stand up in church while they're preaching. See how that makes you feel.
Goes over.
Yeah.
That's right. But conformity, conformity as a thing is not a bad thing. We do it. We all do it. But there is something to be said for if the circumstance arises that you have to stand up, that you be willing to stand up.
It's almost like not necessarily being a nonconformist, but just question what you're doing.
Sure.
I'm not sure if what you do matters. It's just that know why you're doing it.
I would agree with that.
Just know why you're doing it.
I would agree with that. I think that in today's world, you have a lot of folks, though, that I don't think critical thinking, all right? I don't think critical thinking exists as much as it should.
It's hard to have critical thinking when you've got money.
Now, that's an interesting observation. I don't know.
I mean, think about that. If you've got money, it's hard. If you've got money, it's hard to be a critical thinker. But if you don't have money, it's not. You can really think critical.
Well, I'm gonna have to think about that one, Dee. That's an interesting observation. So, I guess to a certain, I guess I can see that, because if you have money, then the need for critical thinking isn't as important, because you've got money to bail you out. So if you're not critically thinking, then who cares, because you've got the money. If you ain't got the money, then you better be critically thinking and making correct decisions, because you don't have it. That's interesting.
Never try to outthink a guy that's broke.
I'm going to steal that one.
I just made it up.
I like it.
But that's the thought.
That down.
That's the thought.
You need to write that down.
You
Never
just can't
outthink a guy who's broke.
You can't outthink him, because he's got to pay for his wife and his kids, and he's on a mission.
That's right.
And you're not going to beat him.
That's
over time.
That is an excellent observation. If you ain't writing it down, I'm going to steal it. I'm going to steal it, because that's good stuff right there.
But you learn that, and you don't necessarily have to learn that in the backwoods of Coker Creek. It could be the downtown of New York, or it's just how you're brought up with the need to survive, and not get ahead, but to survive. It looks like you're trying to get ahead, but you're just trying to survive.
Well, that's an interesting observation, because one of the things that, if you look at the history of this nation, one of the things that powered us is the importance of hard work, right? Calvinism, especially. So, do your work as unto God and not unto men. Mm-hmm. So you're working hard, and the harder you work, the more it shows your faith and the tenets of that. So if faith goes away, then what do we replace it with? Are we replacing it with, you're simply hungry and you've got to You've got to get after it. I don't know. That's an interesting.
Boy, you hit on something that I hadn't thought about either.
That's an interesting thing.
And you go back to the Bible, it says faith without works is dead. How does that play into that?
So then is it really just, do you become then the law of the jungle that, hey, listen, I'm hungry, I want, and therefore I'm doing it to survive, as opposed to a higher, stronger thing, which is the faith?
I think it starts out as a necessity, and it turns into greed somewhere.
Well, there's something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it's typically a pyramid.
Yeah.
And it goes in layers of what people need,
or what they think they need, right?
Well, no, they need it.
Maslow, his first one was there was 3, and then it turns into 5, and
well, I think it's 5 total. You have to have safety and you have to have food, and then
food, shelter, clothing.
Yes, and then my wife's going to kill me because she knows this thing just absolutely down. She's a social worker, so she knows this top to bottom. But basically, as you climb up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the top is something called self-affirmation, and if you reach that point, then you are a whole person and you have all of this stuff, and here you are. So your observation that you get to the top and then you become greedy, that's interesting. This is an interesting philosophical discussion we're having here.
My discussion is always in philosophical.
Well, that's because there's a popular meme or meme, however people pronounce it, that's going around right now, and what it says is hard men create good times create weak men create hard times. So there's a cycle.
Well, the old timers used to say short sleeves to long sleeves to short sleeves.
Because of the cycles of the work?
Yeah, in other words, the father works so that you don't have to, and you get to put on he works in a short sleeve, the son gets to wear a long sleeve, and since he's wearing a long sleeve, his son has to go back to working. So short sleeves to long sleeves to short sleeves.
That's interesting. I'd never heard that, but it's the same concept.
The meme is the same thing.
Yeah. That's interesting. I don't know, but I think the question that, going back to my daughter, I think the question that every parent, hopefully in this country, has is, are we instilling values in our children that include the values that let them have a better life than their parents or their grandparents?
No. We're getting soft.
I'm inclined to agree with that. I think
soft.
We are getting soft. I think that is true. But is there a way to do that, to instill those values along with the recognition that this is why you're here, right? I don't know. And that's something that bothers me as a dad. Is I don't want my daughter to grow up not knowing that what she has, there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that got it there, that got that world there. So that's one of the...
Give me an example of something. I've got 2 kids. I've raised them the same. I do everything I can. And I don't know if it matters anything we do. They just turn out the way they do, I think. Name something that your dad did growing up, or your mother. Can you name a specific instance? The flat tire, the water pump going out, the tree fire. It's something that says, hey, this life's tough and we got to work.
All right, I'll give you
besides just lectures.
So, when I was growing up, Sunday fried chicken was walking around in the yard on Saturday. Okay? My grandma was perfectly capable before she got to the age to where she couldn't do it. Walk out, throw down some corn, chicken walk over, pop that chicken's neck, and that thing's going to be fried chicken. Great fried chicken. My grandma was a great cook. Side note, do you know what a stack cake is?
Pancakes?
No. So Appalachia people used to make stack cakes. And what it was really thin flour, thin, it wasn't cake. It was, I don't know what it was, because people can't make them now. Everybody's forgot how to make them. But you'd stack them up in layers, and you'd put like this, it's almost like apple butter, but it's not apple butter. And the reason people
so it
made
wasn't
them,
pancakes.
No, not pancakes. It was like a white cake layer, but it wasn't. So you'd stack them. Took a very long time to make. Was really great, but most importantly, was really cheap. Right? You can do it all yourself. Go get your apples, a little bit of flour, right?
Yeah.
So, but it took forever to make. It was hard work to make. That, the reason I say that, actually, let me finish that story. People can't make those anymore. So when you actually find some people who are old enough to know how to make them and they make them, a lot of these like bake sales and stuff will have an actual stack cake, and they'll say who made it because that's important.
Could to go get some more.
Well, no, they'll auction it off. I have seen stack cakes go for $500. No kidding. Because people don't know how to make them anymore. Literally, that knowledge base is lost. When my grandma would make them, she literally would just do it, right? Pinch here, dab there, throw it in. She knew what she was doing. There was no recipe for her stack cake. Anyway, all right, so back to my chicken. That right there is self-reliance. There's a chicken, you're going to kill it, you're going to make fried chicken. I explained to my daughter, who loves chicken nuggets, where chicken nuggets came from. She was horrified. The other day I was talking and I said, she asked me how my day was. My daughter is a sweet little girl. I said, I've been running around like a chicken with my head cut off. God. What's that about, Dad? I don't understand that. After my grandma got to the point where she couldn't snap them with her hands, she got the trusty old axe out, and somebody had to hold it. I held many a chicken for my grandma.
Because the chicken will run with its head off, right?
Oh,
Isn't that those saying?
Oh, yeah. When that head comes off, you don't hang on to that
That's
chicken.
where you get the saying.
Yeah, that chicken will take off. My faith in God was strengthened by holding that chicken for my grandma to whack that head off with that axe because, chicken, axe, right?
I'd have to starve. I would starve before I would.
No, see, look, we're just talking
I know
talking about what you got to do.
I know
right?
it.
You can't hustle.
I'd have to starve.
No, listen,
I couldn't do it.
You could do it.
I guess I'd have to.
You could do it.
But here I'm talking about being self-reliant, and I'd have to
you could
eat a tree leaf.
No, you could do it. I guarantee you could do it, Dee. But that...
My kids would have to be starving.
That probably.
Then I could do it.
But that's foreign to my daughter, okay?
Yeah.
So when you ask me growing up, what is, when you talk about self-reliance, that right there is a perfect example, okay? You want a fried chicken dinner on Sunday, there's the chicken, get to it, right? Kill it, cut the feet off, cut the head off, boil it, pluck it, get your batter, fry up your chicken.
But we have to relate stuff to today. And how do you relate that today?
I don't think you can.
I don't know how. I don't know how to do it.
I mean, the old saying, something's a tough row to hoe. If you rode up a hoe of potatoes, or hoed up a row of potatoes, you know what a tough row to hoe is. How do I explain that to my daughter? I mean, do I find a garden and say, hey, listen, go?
They'll quit in 5 minutes.
Sure, because they don't have to. Why? Because, hey, there's French fries at McDonald's, right? So maybe it's other things. What will they say to their kids? Will they say, well, when I was young, we had to look up our own email. We had to look for hotspots to get. What do they call those first world problems? First world. That is a very true statement. We have a lot of first world problems. A lot of the things that we see people fighting and griping about in this country. These third world countries would love to have that problem. I wonder, one of the things that, if you look at the older generations, adversity was something that they took as a given, right? That's just part of it. You look at a lot of the older generations, they took the view that this world is just temporary and you're passing through it, right? This wasn't home. So the fact that they worked and, daylight to dark, it didn't bother them, right? They went to church. Happy. They went to church. They sang their hymns just over in the Beulah land, right?
Yep.
I'm headed there.
Yep.
This ain't.
In fact, that's the words of that song.
It is.
I'm just passing through.
Just passing through. So I wonder sometimes if that also, because if you look at the polls, the people who identify as Christian, all right, specifically Christian, is dropping. Every year it's dropping. So I wonder sometimes, is that going to translate over to you can't withstand adversity? Because if you think this world is it, then this world has to be utopia, right? You've got to make this world perfect. But if you accept, and Hobbes was an English philosopher, very utilitarianism, that sort of thing. And to paraphrase him, he said there are two worlds. This one is the short, nasty, brutish one. So if you accept that there's adversity in this world, then are we losing that with the decline in faith? Are we losing that we don't?
That's going into Calvinism, like you said earlier,
sure,
right?
But more importantly,
Calvinistic.
But more importantly, are we losing the idea that there is going to be adversity in this world? Because think about safe spaces. Right?
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I had there was one thing I was told about bullies. You punch them back.
Quick.
Yeah. Smack them back.
Yeah. If you can't avoid them.
That's right.
Immediately.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you had to learn that.
You had to
learn that.
But here's the thing. Are we raising children? Are we raising a generation that can't stand up to bullies?
Oh yeah, that's how Trump won.
You think so?
Well, yeah, they didn't know how to handle bullies.
That's
not a good or bad thing, but they didn't know how to handle them.
I've never thought about it that way.
See, think about this.
You're talking about in the primary. You're talking about in the
yeah. They didn't know how to handle a bully, but it's like a.
That's interesting. That's an interesting thought.
Think about this. When you went to school, and the guy would get ahead of you at the water fountain, he's still doing that today. He never stopped, and nobody ever stopped him. So you got to have some of that.
That's an interesting analogy right there. So if you have people, if we raise a generation that won't stand up to bullies, then does that explain, or does that at least contribute to lack of critical thinking? Does that contribute to lack of self-reliance? And I would have to say that it does.
It does.
I mean, it would have to, because if you're not standing up for yourself, you're not standing up for values, you're not standing up for a belief system, you're not standing up for the things that are right, true, and good in the world. Potentially. I mean, I guess it would depend. You almost would have to have benevolent rulers.
And then you have to determine, we all have to first agree. Remember that guy that wrote that song, country music song, said you have to stand for something or you'll fall for anything.
Aaron Tippin.
Aaron Tippin, yeah. But wasn't he in concert? I heard he was in concert somewhere. I hadn't heard that name in years.
Oh, I don't know. I remember the song.
Yeah. That's the only thing I remember about him is that phrase in that one song.
Yeah.
But then we have to agree on what's right or wrong. See, that we have to start agreeing on that before we even start agreeing on. We can't even agree on what's right or wrong.
Well, that is a very true statement, and that statement covers a wide range of things in the world today. But one of the things that I think is part of the reason why we have all these arguments about what's right and what's wrong, okay? Which bathroom people are supposed to use.
Yeah.
What pronoun we're supposed to use.
Yeah.
Is because we have time for it.
That's right.
If you had to be out here, as you said, hustling to survive, you ain't got time for that.
You don't have time for that, man.
Period. You got stuff you got to do. So you know, I guess it's true. I mean, if you look, there's a saying, and I can't get it in my mind, but it basically, if you want to ruin someone, make them prosperous. And I think it may have been Mark Twain. I don't remember.
Or Poor Richard's Almanac.
May have been.
You ever read that?
I have.
Boy, that's good.
You know, people. A lot of people today do not appreciate the founding fathers at all.
They were brilliant.
They were brilliant.
Brilliant.
And it wasn't just that they were brilliant. The system of government that we have that so many people criticize today, they went and they looked at every recorded system of government that they possibly could.
And there were others at the time.
Absolutely. That's what
they had come from one.
Absolutely. And that's what all these people that criticize them today, either they don't care, they're academically dishonest, or they're just ignorant. And I don't know which one it is. But they looked at every system of government they could lay their hands on, and this is what they came up with. And the American Constitution has raised more people out of misery than any document in recorded history, with the exception of the Holy Bible. I believe that to the core of my being. You cannot find, I don't think, a better system of government anywhere on the planet or in recorded history. The people who say, well, the founding fathers had slaves, no question, they did. So did a lot of other people at that time. Does it make it right? No. But think about the fact that these men wrote a document that they knew one day would bring about the end of slavery. They knew that. You can go back and read some of their writings at the time. They knew that eventually slavery would be abolished in the United States. Where else do you find that in recorded history? That people look at this and say, this will make us better over time.
Because slavery had been in all of those governments.
Sure. Absolutely. No question about it.
Not just ours. It's been in all of them.
It's been in all of them. Well, it's still practiced in certain countries today. I mean, you don't hear people talk about it, but it's true. There are countries today that have slavery. So, but the fact that the founding fathers created a system of government, the best system of government they could possibly come up with. You know, the famous quote from Franklin talking about Poor Richard's Almanac, when he comes out of the Constitutional Convention and the lady says, so Mr. Franklin, what system of government did you give us? And Franklin says, a republic, madam, if you can keep it. Profound. A constitutional republic requires constant work. So back to our early conversation, if people don't believe they have to work, can we keep a constitutional republic? If you look around, you got to be saying those foundations are cracking.
It's not looking like it.
Not looking like it. So, that's a. You've in addition to everything else, Dee, you've given me additional philosophical ponderings I'll have to do.
Well, these people that go along with you see these people like Ted Cruz that's big into he's a constitutionalist, they call him. Isn't that what he's supposed to be? He just goes by the book no matter what.
Yes. Well, okay, so you have we'll call them two big schools of thought. You have the constitutionalists, or some people call them originalists, and then you have the living document people. Okay?
Yeah.
So the people over here believe the Constitution is a living document. The people over here believe it is a contract.
Right.
I believe it's a contract. Okay. Founding fathers knew exactly what they wrote. They wrote it for a purpose. They gave people the ability to amend the contract, just like you can amend any contract. They didn't make it a living document that morphs along, right?
No.
If it was a living document that just morphs, as these people over here claimed, then why would we have the procedure to make the amendments? There would be no reason for it because it's just going to morph along. But more importantly, if a contract can just morph, you're in the building business. When you sign a contract for 20 ton of gravel,
Yeah.
there's 20 ton of gravel coming, right?
Yeah.
It don't morph into it don't morph into 10.
Try that, telling that to the truck driver.
That's exactly right. It don't morph into
No,
30.
no.
It's 20 tons.
And he's bigger than we are.
Well, that's probably true too. But so the idea
And packing.
So so the idea though that the Constitution is a living document, you won't find any. You will not find any.
And what they do is they amend it, right? That's the amendment.
You're supposed to, yes. If you want to change it, then you
Yeah,
amend it. And it's hard changing the Constitution because it should be hard.
How many times has it been amended?
We have, I should know the answer to this, and I don't.
Is it like 2 or 500?
No, we're 30, 35
35 amendments?
to the Constitution, yeah. Well, you have to think the very first 10 are the Bill of Rights, okay? I mean, all the Second Amendment fights is over the Second Amendment to the Constitution. That is the amendment. So here's the Constitution. The first 10 amendments are the Bill of Rights.
What do they have to do to get it amended?
Well, you have to. Well, it depends. So here's another. This is another thing that's going right now. One of the big fights is term limits. Okay, everybody wants term limits. Mm-hmm. You have this is my personal view. If we don't get term limits, we're done as a country. I believe that. If we don't get term limits for Congress, the U.S. Congress, we're done.
Then we just got dictators instead of a dictator.
Well, what we have, yes and no. So what we have allowed to happen in this country is, and this is what I believe, we have allowed a political class to come into existence. You have the lower class, you have the middle class, you have the upper class, but now we have a political class. It is extremely difficult to defeat an incumbent. Everybody knows that. Especially a congressional incumbent, all right? Because all the money's coming in, all the lobbyists is coming in, right?
Got the war chest.
If you look at salaries, particularly federal salaries, a lot of people don't realize this. Federal salaries have been outpacing private sector salaries for a long time now, okay? Some instances, you have a job in the private sector, the federal counterpart to that job is paid 30, 40% more than the private sector, all right? So now not only do you have a political class created at the electoral level, you have a whole lot of people who like those federal paychecks, right? So what are those people going to do? They're going to protect the system that gives them those federal paychecks.
No question.
Those high federal paychecks, more than what they would get in the private sector. The increase in federal pay, or the disparity between federal pay and private sector pay, there have been studies on it, there have been reports on it, but it all just kind of gets pushed to the side. Really, quite frankly, every citizen should be looking at those reports and asking, why are these people making more in the government than they would make in the private sector?
What can the normal person do about it, though?
Well,
you can't do nothing about it.
You can push for term limits because
you could just vote for the guy that's for term limits.
Yes, make it a litmus test.
Yeah.
Forget. It'll never. Well, I don't think it'll happen. It may happen, but if you make that your litmus test, are you for term limits? Someone comes around and says, "Hey, I'm running for Congress.
Are you for term limits?"
And if the answer is yes, then you expect that person to put a bill up that says, "Hey, we're going to term limit," right? Hey, we're going to back to your question.
Because it was originally set up to serve, not to be a job.
Well, it was originally envisioned by the founders. If you read what they said, not just to serve and not be a job, but the idea to the founders that people would want to be career politicians.
Yeah.
Was foreign.
That was foreign, unless that's what he meant by saying a republic if you can keep it.
Well,
he might have saw that in the works.
Oh, I think no question. I mean, you have a nation who just came out from under a king, right?
Yeah.
If you look, a lot of people want security, right? Mm-hmm. They don't want to be self-reliant. They want security. They want to be someone else to take care of them. And we all, to a certain degree, have that, right? Uh-huh. Every relationship that you're in, whether it's business, whether it's personal, there's a certain amount of, hey, listen, I expect you to take care of me, okay? So at the governmental level, you have people who say, I want to be taken care of. 2020 was a perfect example. You had a whole lot of people who were declared, quote unquote, non-essential, and they happily went to the house and said, pay me.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Can't get a better example of Franklin's can you keep it
right.
than that right there. Because if you're non-essential and you can sit in your house and the government sends you a paycheck, then what are you going to do? Right? What is left? Well, there's not a whole lot left. So people who are not, what's the best way to put it? If you don't care whether or not you get your paycheck from your hard work or from the government cutting you a check, then you're not interested in keeping the republic. You're not interested in term limits, right? Because you don't care. Let the swamp, as everybody refers to it, continue as an ecosystem. It's actually kind of ironic because Washington, D.C., for the most part, was built on a swamp. But you have, I mean, that right there, term limits. So how do you get term limits? I said a bill. Actually, it would require a constitutional amendment. So 2/3 each chamber.
What's the odds of that happening?
Slim to none.
Yeah.
Slim to none. But you can also, if enough states call for a convention of the states, then you can open it up to the Constitution being amended. Now, what are the odds of that happening? Who knows? But
how'd you smash your finger?
All right, so I was building. I know, right?
You got working hands.
I do have working hands.
But you got well cut fingernails.
Well, I keep them well cut because I've had them.
You're an oxymoron. What do they call it?
Oxymoron.
Oxymoron.
Or a contradiction in terms.
Yeah.
Actually, no. I keep my fingernails cut back because if I don't, I'll get them ripped off when I'm working. For whatever reason, mine will catch and they'll tear. So I keep them cut back to where it's. So I'm building a covered area. So my wife and daughter wanted a pool. All right. 2019, I order the kit to build a pool. You can order a kit. All right. So
no problem. Right?
Well, that's what I thought. So I had to get an excavator in because I can't excavate. Did all the rest of it myself. Finally got my wife out there to help me with the pool creek for the base because I'm like, all right, this is just whatever. And she actually is a much better troweler than I am. I don't trowel worth nothing. Can't finish concrete either. Okay, so anyway, so I'm building a covered area for the pool deck, so people have a place to sit. And I don't know what I was thinking, incredibly stupid on my part, but I'm holding a 2x and I'm cutting it, and I'm not paying attention to the fact that I'm holding it here and I'm cutting it here. Literally just wasn't paying attention. Yeah. As soon as that thing whacks through, my hand slams right down into the ground. Right there. So it's finally grown.
It's about out, isn't it?
It's about out, yes. But it was all the way up here. So it actually started growing from like way back in here. But yeah, it's almost gone. So I keep my fingernails trimmed so I don't get them ripped off when I'm working because for whatever reason.
Is the pool swimmable now?
It is. So my daughter's 8th birthday was July the 2nd. Mm-hmm. Everything got delayed because it takes a little while for all the stuff to come in anyway. Well, COVID delayed everything. So it didn't actually arrive. I had everything lined up. All right, you will appreciate this as a construction
You had the hole
person.
dug?
No. I had the excavator lined up. I had the concrete company lined up because I can't finish concrete for whatever reason. I'm terrible at finishing concrete. Had all the gravel ready to be delivered. I mean, I had it. I'm telling you, I was my own general contractor, and I was proud of myself.
Yeah.
So I'm getting emails from the company, and what's interesting is, so Hydra Pools, which does just about all of the kits, well, I guess in the entire country almost, is headquartered in Athens and in Sweetwater. My pool kit was right up the road.
Yeah.
I just couldn't get it.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there waiting for my pool kit to get to the house, and got everybody lined up. The pool company saying, "Hey, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming." And my excavator's like, "Hey, Stephen, I gotta get on other jobs." Great. So then my concrete people are like, "Stephen, man, we got to go to other jobs." So my pool kit comes, and it sits in my backyard for about 9 months.
Golly.
While I'm trying to get everybody lined up.
Did you have to weed eat around it?
Yes, I had to weed eat around it. There was like 10 or 12 big, huge crates. Had plastic over it. Birds were nesting in it. I was like, please, oh God, don't let anything get into the liner. So anyway, so March of 2021, excavation starts. My daughter's birthday is July the 2nd. And my wife is like, "Is this thing going to be done, Stephen?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it'll be done. It's March. It'll be done."
Yeah.
Couldn't get a concrete person in. Nobody could make it.
Right.
So I got a guy that does pavers. Literally, the pool was finished June the 30th, 2021. So.
A few months ago.
Yes.
You know, we've had trouble getting concrete. They can't even get concrete. They can't get the cement from somewhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're down to like 3 days a week.
Well, y'all have a.
When I needed them, they were at your place. I guess.
Yeah, I didn't have that much concrete, but y'all have a company out of here. Is it Lamcon?
Lamcon, yeah. Yeah.
Can't think of the guy that owns it. Steve Lambert.
Lambert, yeah.
Is that right?
Steve Lambert, yeah.
They actually delivered all of my concrete. I didn't have trouble getting them there.
Yeah.
I just couldn't find a concrete finisher. They were all
busy.
Yeah, they were all busy, and I can't finish concrete. I've tried it. No. There's a lot of stuff I can do. That ain't one of them.
Well, it's one of those things you kind of got to have a knack for.
That's what everybody says.
You know, some people just have knacks for stuff.
Yeah, I don't have a knack for concrete. It ends up grainy and yeah.
What do you think about, now you're running for what, district attorney?
I am.
And is that, what is that what area is that?
That covers McMinn, Monroe, Polk, and Bradley. It's a 4-county district.
So that would be where you got roped into going to college. That'd be where you were born, where you were raised, where you work.
Yes.
And
that's it. That's the 4 counties where I was born, where I was raised, where I live, and where I worked. Yep.
That's about as close as you can get to it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, what does the district attorney do?
The district attorney is responsible. The short version is the district attorney is responsible for prosecuting all the crimes in the district. All right, all of them. Any criminal offense goes through the district attorney's office. The district attorney has the ability to decide to prosecute, not to prosecute, what to prosecute, how to prosecute.
What if he says, "I don't want to prosecute any of them"? Does he have that authority?
He does, or she does, he or she.
Who gives him that authority?
It's actually that's the law in the state of Tennessee.
So it's the state of Tennessee.
Yeah, it's
you have
statutory.
to have one.
Yeah.
What if you don't have one?
You have to have one.
They appoint you one?
Yeah, you'll have one appointed. Yeah.
The state of Tennessee does it.
Yes, the governor will appoint one.
The governor.
Yeah.
So the governor's over the district attorney, I guess, in a sense.
No, really, no one is over the district attorney. So people don't realize this, but the district attorney is the most powerful position in state government, quite candidly. The district attorney can do practically anything on a criminal matter, okay? So very little very little oversight. Very little oversight. The courts will intervene, but it is a rare thing for the courts to intervene.
What court would that be?
Well, that would be your circuit courts or your criminal courts, circuit courts that cover criminal matters, your criminal courts, and then obviously your courts of criminal appeals and your Supreme Court.
So the district attorney's kind of a...
Here's like I said, a lot of people don't realize, but the district attorney general is the most powerful position in our district. Okay, the district attorney general sets policy when it comes to crime, and we have some great sheriffs, we have some great chiefs, not knocking them, but their job is to enforce the law. The district attorney general sets policy, period. So when you look at your community, if you believe your community is not safe, okay, where you need to start is at the district attorney general. What decisions are being made that's making your community more safe or less safe, all right? Which offenders are receiving priority? What types of crime are receiving priority? What is the policies when it comes to dealing with a particular type of crime or a particular type of offender? You have opioids. Everybody talks about opioids, all right? Drugs.
Fentanyl.
Sure, fentanyl. The interesting thing about fentanyl, part of the reason why we have such a problem with fentanyl is it's cheaper than heroin. So you can get heroin, dilute heroin down with mixing agents, typically baking powder, put a tiny amount of fentanyl in it, and you can sell that heroin as if it is a much higher grade of heroin than what it really is, because the user uses it and the fentanyl gives it the kick. And
what does it do to you?
Heroin and fentanyl, for that matter, they're narcotics. I mean, it's
just make you high or whatever they say.
Yeah,
make you happy.
Yes,
whatever it is.
Whatever it is. Yeah. Never having done it, I don't know. So that is the role of the district attorney. The role of the district attorney is set policy. What is the policy? What's the policy for a judicial district? How are we going to handle certain kinds of crimes? How are we going to handle certain types of offenders? And
so they can whatever they want, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. You can have guilty people not prosecuted. You can have innocent people who are indicted.
You can decide not to. So a policeman arrested somebody for breaking a law that exists. They take you in, and the district attorney decides whether or not he's going to prosecute. You could break the law, but not. What happens if you break a law? They arrest you and take you in, but the district attorney doesn't decide to do anything to you. How is it on your record? I was arrested but not convicted.
It's just a dismissal. It's a dismissal, and you can have your record expunged, even the record of your arrest.
How hard is that?
If it's a dismissal, it's not hard. It's literally just a form order that gets signed.
So no harm, no foul.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, nothing hard about getting it expunged if it's dismissed.
What if you had a police officer that just kept arresting people for something that wasn't no big deal, and they was just wearing the district attorney's office out? Seems like that would be the, man, why don't this guy quit arresting these people? I mean, is there crimes that are just not worth?
That is an excellent question. Have you ever seen the Andy Griffith Show?
That's what I was thinking of.
All right. So the episode where Andy leaves town and Barney's in charge, and Barney arrests everybody.
He arrested Aunt B, and then
that's right.
And then couldn't find out he had arrested Opie.
That's right.
Remember?
That's right. So that's an excellent question. You can have a law enforcement officer that does that. It's very rare, though.
Yeah.
Okay. Most law enforcement officers, if they don't consider it something that they need to do the mountains of paperwork that goes with making an arrest, they're not going to do it. We have some excellent law enforcement officers in our district. Okay. One of the biggest issues in law enforcement is training and education. We have some extremely educated law enforcement officers in our district, across the board, all 4 counties, very educated.
Good people.
Good people, no
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
And the interesting thing about me, my degree is in criminology. All right, literally the science of crime.
Yeah.
All right, we can talk crime all day long. So when you ask me, would that be an issue that you would expect to run into? No, because I know pretty much all of these officers. I know the school of thought that they come from. You're probably not going to have that. If you had a law enforcement officer that was continually arresting people and there was no basis to do it, at some point the district attorney is going to have to say, okay, we're going to have to talk about this. Talking about statistics and you're talking about numbers, the way the Tennessee courts, we have the administrative office of the courts, the way they count it is by counts. They don't count it by quote unquote cases. So if one person does 5 things, then that's 5 counts. All right. So it's hard to know exactly what your numbers are. You're going to have to parse through them. To your larger question, there's a lot of cases, aren't there? Absolutely. There are a lot of cases. And one of the things that the district attorney has to do is, when I say cases, I'm talking about individuals. All right, forget the esoteric distinction I just made with you about counts versus cases and all that. So when I say cases, I'm talking about people. Every person that comes into that courtroom, whether it's at the general sessions court level or the criminal court level, is an individual that requires attention to be paid to them. Okay? Now there's some people who need a lot of attention. There's some people who don't need as much attention. All right? So it varies over the type of crime. All right? What I'm about to say is there's a lot of variance in this, but as a general matter, in any given community, 90% of your crime is committed by 10% of your population. Okay? Now it varies. Okay? Just as a general matter. 90% of crime in any given community is committed by 10% of the population. Okay? So, and for violent crimes, the studies bear this out, most of your violent crime, over half of your violent crime, is committed by a very small percentage of your community.
Yeah,
okay?
Like that much.
So, the district attorney, part of what the district attorney's job is and why the district attorney has the power that the district attorney has, the district attorney has to look at those individuals as people, as individuals, when they come into the court system and decide what is justice, right? Because the obligation of the district attorney is to do justice. It is not to seek a conviction. A conviction may very well be justice. But there may also be situations where justice is doing something else. Get them into rehab. Hey, listen, go to rehab. We got no problem dismissing your case, right? Maybe the correct thing for this individual may not be the correct thing for the next individual, okay? That is part and parcel of why the district attorney has the discretion that the district attorney has. Because if you don't treat these people as individuals, if you try to do a cookie cutter approach to the criminal justice system, it's a whole lot easier on you as a bureaucrat, but you're not going to get results out in your community because you're going to miss people, okay? There are risk factors that go with each individual that commits any given type of crime. You know, back to Barney, okay? Barney and Andy. Barney is locking up everybody. That's cookie cutter approach to crime, right? Everybody goes into the jail. When Andy comes back to town, what does Andy do? Andy dispenses justice, right? There is a difference.
He even had them come to the desk, and he even heard the cases and dispensed
justice. Yeah, right. That is what a district attorney ultimately is supposed to do. Because think about this: there's an old court case, and I should have brought it so I could read the quote. But the court in that case talks about the role of a district attorney. And it says he is to stand between the government and the people. All right? You can have, let's say, a law enforcement officer like what you're talking about that is rogue, okay, wants to arrest people. The district attorney's job is to look at that and say, no, you're not going to do that, right? The district attorney is to safeguard the innocent and pursue the guilty.
You're describing that as a whole different thing than what my understanding was.
Sure, most people don't think it, and part of the reason most people don't think it is because you have a lot of politicians that stand up and say we're tough on crime, tough on crime, tough on crime. Okay, tough on crime, quite candidly, doesn't work. It's never worked. All right? Smart on crime works. Tough on crime don't. And what's interesting, there was an Italian philosopher, Cesare Beccaria. 1764, he wrote a treatise, and it's called Of Crimes and Punishments. Way back then, Beccaria said to deal with crime, you have to show people that justice will be delivered swiftly, certainly, and with punishment that is proportionate to the crime. Beccaria was one of the main influences, or one of the influences, I won't say the main influence, but a large influence on the founding fathers and criminal justice in this country. Now jump ahead, you come into the 90s, and Bill Clinton was one of the tough on crime, right? 100,000 police officers on the street, okay? That informed a lot of criminal justice policy in this country going forward. So now, what makes a better soundbite? What you just heard me say about safeguarding the innocent and pursuing the guilty, or I'm tough on crime, right?
Right.
Tough on crime is a much better soundbite, okay? But tough on crime is not going to deal with the problems that you have in your community. 30 years ago, you would have someone who would commit a crime. No question they committed a crime. They would come into court and the judge would say, we're either going to deal with your case or you're going in the military, right? We all know people that's had that happen. You have successful businessmen in this town that I guarantee you had that choice given to them at some point in their life. It turned their life around. The district attorney had to agree to that resolution.
Or that justice.
That justice, right? That was justice, okay? You have a person who comes into court and their criminal record may not reflect everything there is about them. In fact, most of the time, it won't reflect it. The district attorney has to know something about that person. One of the things that is of vital importance is communication between your law enforcement officers and the district attorney's office, because the law enforcement officers are actually out in the community. They know the streets, okay? The district attorney is an attorney, a lawyer. All of the assistant district attorneys are lawyers, okay? Most of them, just as a statistical matter, they're not going to be out there looking at and seeing what's going on in the streets, but your law enforcement officers are. So when this person comes into the courtroom, you need to know what the deal is with this person. Is this a problem person? Is this a person that law enforcement is seeing a lot? Maybe they haven't been charged with a whole lot of crimes. Maybe they haven't been convicted of a whole lot of crimes, but they're a problem person. There's someone out in the community that is causing problems. You have to focus on that individual. That individual needs to move up in the priority list of people that need to be dealt with, because all offenders are not created equal. Your drugs. You have people out here, if it ain't red hot or nailed down, they're going to steal it. Okay? They're not stealing it to survive. They're stealing it to fund a habit. What do you do with those people? You got to do something with them. May very well be that rehabilitation is what needs to happen. You may have people who can be rehabilitated from a drug addiction. Okay? A lot of people talk about the criminal justice system being a rehabilitation system anyway. When people would get sent off to prison, well, they've been rehabilitated. Right now they're a law-abiding member of society. When I say rehabilitated, I'm talking about rehabilitate the drug problem. Okay? But eventually, you're going to have people who continue to commit crimes. Yeah, it might be driven by drugs, but they've reached the point where their cost upon society is such that rehabilitation isn't going to work. We're going to lock you up just to give us a break, right? Just so we ain't getting everything stole that's not red hot or nailed down. Mm-hmm. So those decisions, though, have to be made on an individual level. You cannot come in and say, here are guidelines, and this is what we're going to do.
Like what are those sheets they say, like those graphs they say.
Yeah,
okay,
like if it's 1 and 2, do this, 2 and 3, do this. Yeah.
It's not like that.
You can't do that. It's not good policy to do that.
Is it feasible? Do you have time or the manpower to not just do it by the graph?
Absolutely you do. You have to work, okay? We are paying people taxpayer dollars to work. They need to work, right? It does take time. It is longer. It is harder. You do have to have conversations with a bunch of people as opposed to get your cheat sheet out and say, this person is here, therefore this person gets this.
On the count of this, we'll not do it. On the count of that, we'll not.
That's right. That's right. Okay? Take your cheat sheet out. What I'm talking about is harder. It's harder work, but it pays dividends. If you're going to get paid, this goes back to you asking me about how I grew up. If you're paid by the taxpayers, you need to do the work. Right? Mm-hmm. That's hard work, and it needs to be done, and that's what you're being paid to do. The district attorney occupies a different position than anybody else. There's nobody else in the criminal court system that occupies the position that the district attorney does, because here's the thing. Someone accuses you of a crime, and it's not true. All right? It's not true. As soon as the district attorney's name goes on that indictment, your life has forever changed. Period. It's changed. Your life will never go back to what it was.
That's terrible, isn't it?
It is terrible. But that is the awesome power that resides in that office. So when something comes in, it needs to have attention paid to it, right? Mm-hmm. It shouldn't just be, okay, fine, it's pro forma. Somebody said it, here's a report, therefore, here you go. That's not what the district attorney is supposed to do. The district attorney is supposed to look at it, figure out what is just, and act accordingly. And that may very well be not prosecuting a case. It may very well be prosecuting a case that's going to be politically unpopular, right? But that's the job. When I started as a prosecutor, I don't know if they still do it, but they had something called the New Prosecutors Academy, and they would send new prosecutors to it. And there was an old prosecutor from over in Middle Tennessee. He's dead now, I think. Hopefully I haven't just prematurely put him in the grave, but I believe I heard he died. His name was Gus Radford. And Gus had been a prosecutor a long time, had these big handlebar mustaches. And he walked in and he said, listen, you need to understand this as a prosecutor. On any given day, you may have to make a decision that will end your career. And when that day comes, you have to make that decision because it's the right thing to do. Now think about that. If you're not prepared to make a decision that is going to get you fired if you're an assistant district attorney, because there's assistant district attorneys, or beat in the next election as district attorney, you don't need to be there, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to be there.
Or they're your kid's baseball coaches, something.
Whatever. Doesn't matter.
Whatever the reason.
Whatever it is. If you're not prepared to make that decision, you don't need to be in that job. One of the things that that I have seen in a broad spectrum, not just pertaining directly to the district attorney's office, but just as a broad matter, you have an awful lot of people who are in elected positions who do not want to make a decision that will cost their chances of being reelected. And that is one of the worst things that we have going today. You will never have good government if people aren't prepared to do what is necessary to be done, what is right, what is just, and face the consequences. You'll never have it. We will lose our republic. One of the things that that always concerned me when I was a prosecutor was, and it was something that I always kept in the front of my mind. Am I acting out of fear or favor? If I'm acting out of fear or favor, I'm in the wrong business, because you cannot. And that is going to be one of the key things that I am going to preach as district attorney to every person that works for me. You will not act out of fear or favor. You will not. You know, it's funny. You'd think lawyers like trying cases, right?
You would think. Yeah.
Well, a lot of them don't. A lot of them are terrified of trying cases. Okay, and trying cases is hard work. I'm just here to tell you. I've tried over 40 jury trials. It's
That's a
hard
lot.
work.
Isn't that a lot?
It's a lot. Yes, I tried a lot of cases when I was a prosecutor. It's hard work. Okay. And if you don't like public speaking, which a lot of people don't, I think it's like the number 2 fear of most people is public speaking. You can easily, as a prosecutor, do something on a case you shouldn't have done simply because you don't have the nerve to go to trial, to get up in front of 12 citizens and say, hey, listen, folks, here it is, right? It's very rare that you'll see, especially around here, a action out of fear because you're afraid of someone retaliating against you, okay?
We're not.
It's not like that, okay? We don't have that. We don't have cartels blowing up people's cars, okay?
We assume.
Well, I've never known of it.
Yeah.
So the fear, a large part of the fear is taking it to trial, all right? If you're not willing to go to trial, if you're not willing to get up, speak to a jury of the community, then you're going to act out of fear, right? This person may be a very bad person, and you may need to do something with that person, and you don't want to do it. So you offer a resolution to that person's attorney, and you say, here's an offer, right? Here's a plea offer. Everybody talks about, oh, plea bargain, plea bargain, plea bargain. I'm just here to tell you, if we didn't plea bargain cases, the court system would literally break in half, all right? Because there's too many cases. And quite frankly, not every case. You remember how people used to say, don't make a federal case out of it?
Yeah.
All right. There's a reason that saying exists, okay? Federal cases are serious cases, right? You don't go and put a dogs at large case in front of a jury, all right? Somebody's dog off their leash running down the street, assuming it's not got rabies and it don't bite nobody, that's not a case that should ever be pushed through the court system, okay?
It's expensive and it ties everybody up.
That's exactly right, and it's worth precisely nothing, okay? Deal with it, right? Say, hey, put your dog up. We're going to dismiss the charge against you. Stop letting your dog off, right?
Yep.
Fine, but that's a discretionary decision by the district attorney. But if you have a person who is a danger to the community, a person who is out here, fits the risk factors for acts of violence, right? Fits into the risk factors that go with things getting worse down the road, then you have to deal with that person. And if that means taking that person to a jury trial, you have to be willing to do it. So that's one side. The other side is obvious. Is this your friend's ball coach? Is this your, pastor at your church? Is this okay, what is justice? If justice is prosecuting that person to the full extent of the law, then you need to do it. If you don't have the nerve to do it, if you don't have the gumption to do it, then don't do it. Go get another job, because that's part of it. It's probably not an accurate analogy, but if you can't whack that head off that chicken, don't take the job, right? That's the two things, period. Here's the other thing. There needs to be a fundamental understanding of crime in the district attorney's office, all right? A lot of theories out there about why people commit crimes, right? There's strain theory, there's social control theory, all these theories that are out there. What's important I wouldn't expect any person working for me to know all this stuff. All right, I know it because I went and got a degree in it. What I do expect them to know, though, what are we looking at in any given case that we need to know? All right, is there a chance of rehabilitation? Is this somebody who has some redeeming qualities that can be brought out, or is there not? And if there's not, there needs to be measures put in place to deal with it. But that requires paying attention, knowing what you're doing, and having a set policy. I don't do campaign promises. I think they're useless. All right, I do, because people are going to say what they think is going to get them elected. All right, I don't do that. What I tell people is I'm going to work 365, 24/7 if that's what it takes to get the job done, because I'm being paid. All right, district attorney is not supposed to have anything outside of being district attorney as far as practicing law, period. You're practicing law for the people, all right? I am going to do everything I can to make sure that the people who work for me have all of the information that they need, all of the training they need to make the decisions that are going to keep our community safe. I'm not going to keep internal statistics on plea bargains, on how many cases go to trial. I don't care. You know what I care about? I care about the numbers out in the community. That's what I want to see. I want to see those numbers. Whether or not people think I'm doing a good job as district attorney is going to be reflected in what they see when they're out in their community. All right? If they feel safer and the numbers show that they're safer, then I'm doing a good job. But if for some reason they think that I'm not and they want to vote me out, then they'll vote me out. I'm not going to have sound bites and headlines and things that make it appear I'm doing a good job. I'm going to be looking at the statistics and the metrics that are out there on what is happening in a community, because they're out there. The other thing, law enforcement, I'm going to be talking to them all the time because I want to know. My cell phone number is all over.
They're the ones that made the arrest.
They're the ones out here in the community. They know who is doing what in their community.
They're the concrete finisher.
They're the concrete finisher. That's exactly right. I'm not. My cell phone number is all over this district. Everybody has it. I don't know of anybody who don't have it. They can call me. They want to talk to me, you call me and you talk to me. That's law enforcement. That's citizens groups. That's neighborhood watch people. Hey, listen, we want to know why this isn't happening in our community. You call me and I'm going to talk to you because I need to know. That's going to be one of the key things that I'm going to stress to my people is you are intelligence gatherers. Okay? Information is coming to you. You've got to be tuned in to the community. All right? This ain't 9 to 5. You ain't walking in, punching your time card, and going home.
And looking at the chart to see.
That's exactly right. Your job is to keep people safe, period. That's it. And as long as you're making decisions that are keeping people safe, you're doing your job. And if you're making decisions without fear and without favor, then you're doing your job. I'm not going to ask anymore because there's not any more to be asked. That's all any of us can do. And that's going to be the standard that I hold myself to. Are we doing this out of fear or are we doing this out of favor? And if the answer is no and the facts and the law support what we're doing, then we're going to do it. And if people don't like it, there's an election coming.
And the statistics of how many people you put in jail or didn't put in jail, that wouldn't necessarily reflect on what your job doing. Your job is just to decide what's the proper justice.
Well, the statistics of who goes to jail and who don't go to jail are important only in the analysis of are you putting the correct people in jail, okay? There are people who need to be off the streets. They are dangerous offenders.
Evil.
Yes, evil. Mm-hmm. Those people need to be off the streets, period. You've got to identify those offenders. Those offenders might not necessarily have the criminal history that you would that might fit your little chart, okay?
Yeah.
They may not have that, but you have a law enforcement officer over here saying, hey, listen, This guy was at this crime scene. This guy was at this crime scene. This guy was at this crime scene. This is a bad guy, okay? We just ain't caught him doing that yet. But we have caught him doing this, okay? That crime right there needs to become important, because that crime right there, maybe they don't fit the little flow chart. Maybe they don't fit the sheet. But this is important. You're getting information from the community. This guy right here is somebody who's going to cause some serious harm down the road. Okay? I'll give you an example. Now, I'll give you the disclaimer. All people are presumed innocent until proven guilty. All right? So there was a quadruple homicide in McMinn County just last weekend. 4 people shot and killed. The person that apparently is alleged to have been the killer is a fella from McMinn County. He has prior convictions, I think robbery and statutory rape. He had a warrant issued for him in October of 2019 in McMinn County. He was arrested in Bradley County in December of 2019. I think he had 109 grams of meth and a firearm on him.
Nice guy.
Yeah, boy. Why was he out of jail in September of 2021? Okay? That is a person who should have received attention, period. Okay? He has a warrant from McMinn County. He has a warrant from Bradley County. Why was he released from jail? Why was he allowed to make bail? Those are questions that go directly into the role of the District Attorney General. Why was this person not identified as a dangerous offender? Why was this person not kept in jail? Now, it may be a moot point. Maybe he didn't do it, right? We don't know. He's innocent until he's proven guilty.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
Whole nother thing.
That's a whole nother thing.
But as we sit here, let's assume that he did, that he is in fact the perpetrator of a horrible crime. Happened just right down the road from my house. Okay, so when I see this, you know, I'm not just sitting here talking, hey, listen, let me score some political points here. No, this is my neighborhood, right? This is the community I live in. Why was he not identified as somebody who probably shouldn't be released on bail? Maybe you keep that guy in jail, okay? He's got 2 separate drug trafficking offenses. He has prior convictions. Why not keep him in jail? We're not talking about a small amount of meth. I mean, 109 grams of meth and a firearm. You're talking about somebody who's up clearly to no good. Why is that person not in jail? Those decisions are the kind of decisions that have to be made every day for all of the people who come in to the criminal court system who are charged with crimes. And if those decisions are not made based on the individual with every piece of information that is available, okay? We're talking a couple of phone calls, right? Somebody comes into court, you pick up the file, you look at it. Who's the arresting officer? You call the arresting officer. Tell me about this guy, right? Or let's say it's a domestic assault, right? You pick up the phone, you call the person that was allegedly assaulted. Has this happened before? How many times has this happened? Has it happened and you haven't reported it, right?
So you're having to try to determine which things need much attention and which don't. And by getting rid of the things that don't need attention, you can focus more on the things that do.
That is
so
exactly right.
It's not having to look at everything. And like I sit and think, how could you keep up with all this stuff? You'd have to have a massive organization. But you're saying if you eliminate these things that you don't have to, then you can focus on the things that you do.
Yes, but you're correct. It does require an organization. The taxpayers pay a lot of money every year for the district attorney's office. Okay, I think there's 14 lawyers in the district attorney's office. I don't know for sure right now because they've had quite a few people leave and they brought some in and they haven't replaced some and whatever. So I don't know how many's there right now, but I think there's 14 positions for assistant district attorneys. All right, that's 14 lawyers that are paid for by the taxpayers. I think the district attorney gets paid roughly $15,000 a month, I think. some of the assistant DAs are making $9,000-$10,000 a month. All right, we're not talking about you're working for chicken feed and you're not a well-paid person. Median salary for a private attorney in this area is, I think, $65,000. So you have people making, well, remember what I was talking about, government salaries, private sector salaries. You have people making in excess of what they would make over here. Their job is to keep the community safe. So however much time, however much organization, however much paper you have to generate, that has to be job number one. Make the community safe. Identify the people that need to be removed from the community so that the rest of the community can live in peace. Funny story about people. I'm going to bore you with something real quick. We've been talking a whole long time. So tell me when to shut up.
No, I'm good.
Most people, all right, will age out, and that's what it's referred to as. They will age out of crime. And if you go back to your childhood, think about it, it makes perfect sense. But the statistics bear it out. So 18 to 24, I think they've moved it now to 25, is the peak age of criminality. So if you're going to commit a crime, now you got to remember 18 and back is a juvenile, so you're not 18 to 24, say 25. That's when most people are going to commit crimes. After the age of 25, most people don't commit crimes regardless of whether they've ever came into contact with the court system. All right? Whether they've ever, yes, it's very interesting.
Very interesting.
And it should inform policy. Okay? So you have people who, regardless of whether they have any interaction with the court system, probably will never commit another offense. Now, divorce, unemployment, loss of a close family member, spouse, mother, father, all drive criminal offenses. Okay, those aren't things that you're necessarily going to think about when you're dealing with somebody who comes into the court system, but it's important. So if you have a 22-year-old recently divorced kid who, pick a crime, smashes a mailbox, what are the odds that that kid will continue to commit crimes?
None.
Very low. Very low.
Yeah.
Okay?
He's just mad.
More than likely. That individual, let's say he smashes 100 mailboxes. Let's say he goes to one of these stores around here and breaks their fancy plate glass window. Okay? That window is worth more than $5,000. That young man committed a felony. That's a felony. If you take your little cheat sheet, what are you going to do? Well, it's a felony, and therefore it's this, and therefore it's this. Right? Bad. That's not justice. It's not justice. Now, one of the things, and I will be fair because we should be. One of the things that people have talked about is, well, we need to sentences need to match, right? Okay, this person was charged with this felony, they were treated this way, this person, and they ought to be treated the same. Okay, it sounds good, but it don't work. It's never worked. It never will work. All people are not the same. All people deserve to be treated as equals under the law, and that's a fact. But the law recognizes there are differences. There are differences in what happened. There's differences in why it happened. All right? That's why the law gives the discretion to the district attorney general. You have to have somebody sitting in that chair who is only interested in doing justice.
If that didn't come into play, then you wouldn't need him.
Exactly. You're exactly correct. You could just have your cheat sheet and say, go do it.
Yeah.
You could save what's $15,000 a month, 170.
Just leave it up to the lawyers to argue
lawyers and the judge.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, judge, where's your cheat sheet? I mean, you could.
When you said originally a district attorney is between the public and the government, that was I'd never thought of it that way.
It's true. Because any person can go swear out a warrant. In Tennessee, I could go swear out a warrant on you right now. Okay?
I might not even been there.
That's right. Judge is going to sign it because I've raised my right hand and I've sworn to it. Clerk is going to issue it. You're going to get picked up. You're going to go sit in the county jail till you make bail. Okay? All because Stephen Hatchet said Dee Burris did X, Y, and Z. All right?
And I can't even get my wife to understand what I'm saying.
Well,
much less everybody else.
But think about this. You come into court, right? You go get you a lawyer, more than likely, who's sitting there that's going to make a decision that will impact whether or not you move through. Let's say I swore that you committed a felony, okay? So you come into General Sessions Court. You've had to make bail. You've got your lawyer, all right? You're already out $10,000, $15,000. Here's General Sessions Court. It's a felony, so it can't be resolved in General Sessions Court. Here's a district attorney that says, no, we need to have a preliminary hearing on this and see if the judge sends you to the grand jury. Okay? Preliminary hearing is the level of proof is probable cause. It's not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. It's probable cause. Very low standard. So if there's a hearing and I walk in there, nobody asks me any questions. Nobody tries to determine if I'm telling the truth. I walk into General Sessions Court and I say, yep, Dee Burris did it, Judge. Your lawyer asked me whatever questions your lawyer asked me, but that case is going to get bound over. Probably 99% of the cases that go through General Sessions Court and have a preliminary hearing are bound over to the grand jury, okay? Grand jury only hears one side of it. So either the officer that I gave the report to or me comes into the grand jury. You're not there. You don't give them your side. You're going to get indicted. The vast majority of cases that go to the grand jury get indicted. All right? Now, you're in criminal court. Okay? You're still paying your lawyer.
You're depressed.
You probably are depressed. You probably lost your job. You probably had your picture in the Just Busted. You're probably in a pretty bad shape. Okay? There you are in criminal court. District attorney again gets to make the decision. Do you move forward? Does this case move forward? And if your case moves forward, if that's the decision of the district attorney, eventually you will be sitting in front of a jury paying your lawyer more money to defend you. Okay?
Doing an Alford plea.
Well,
I've learned that from TV.
Well, an Alford plea, all right, well, okay. I'm going to come back to Alford.
Okay.
So you're sitting there, you're paying your lawyer, you go to trial, and let's say I clearly was lying. There was proof I was lying. Let's say you have an ironclad alibi, okay? And it's true. I said the crime occurred in Bradley County on this day at this time, and it turns out that you were in Puerto Vallarta on a cruise, right? And here's a picture of you with your smiling, happy face, all right? You still had to go through a trial. You still had to go through the expense, the public humiliation, paying for a lawyer on a case that you were never guilty of to begin with. That's not justice, okay? It's justice in the general sense of the term in that you had a right to a trial, you received due process, but let's say the district attorney knew way back here that you were in Puerto Vallarta.
We would hope that would never be the case, right?
We would hope.
That would be.
We would hope that no people who are plainly innocent are ever prosecuted. But if you're worried about statistics...
Or maybe you committed a crime that wasn't that bad.
Sure.
Is there such a thing?
There are crimes that, quote unquote, aren't that bad.
Yeah.
I mean, you look, number one, to see what kind of damage is done, and you look, number two, to see if there is a victim. You look, number three, to see what the societal interest is. Okay? Let's go back to my dogs at large case.
Yeah.
If that dog ain't biting somebody, if that dog ain't making people wreck because it's running out in the road, does anybody really care?
Do we need to tie up the whole public's money and the public's time for that?
That's exactly a great question. So, Alford pleas. So an Alford plea, I'm going back with my little diagram right here. An Alford plea says, I didn't do it, but I'm going to plead guilty to doing it because it's in my best interest to do so. So let's take our example of you. So you get accused by me, and it's not true. You don't have the ability to lose your job. You don't have the resources to deal with public scrutiny and all of that. You need to get this case resolved quickly and get on your way, okay? So your lawyer goes to the DA's office and says, we'll offer us something, all right? Now your lawyer, being a good lawyer, has already given them the alibi evidence. They've already turned it over, showing that you weren't there, that you were off on your cruise with your lovely bride. And the DA's office says, well, we don't dismiss stuff. That hurts our statistics. We want a plea. So your lawyer comes to you and says, hey, listen, they're not going to dismiss it. They want a plea, okay? We've given them the alibi evidence. We've shown them that it's not you. We've shown them it couldn't possibly be you. But, and let's take it one step further. The guy accusing you is rich, he's powerful, and the DA's office don't want to make him mad, okay? They will let you plead to this, and they'll put you on probation, so you won't do any jail time. Now, you're sitting here saying, well, what do I do? Do I go through this whole process I just outlined where you ultimately end up in front of a jury and you get acquitted? Just a side note, there's been a ton of acquittals in our district in the last 7 years. So, you have a decision to make. What do? You say, I can't do it. I can't afford it. I got to get this done. It's in my best interest to enter an Alford plea. Happens all the time.
Which means you're saying, I'm not guilty, but
I'm going to say I am to get this over with. It's in my best interest to do it. And that is a judgment of conviction. You are rendered infamous, and there you go. So back to my original question, was justice done? Obviously, I would submit no.
Because you can't get that expunged.
Technically, well, there's some felonies that you can get expunged now. It's very difficult. It's very limited. But more than likely, no, you're not getting that expunged. You're going to have a conviction, and there it is. And you'll have all the things that go with it. Not able to vote, not able to own a firearm, all that.
Boy, that would be a bad situation, wouldn't it?
It would be a bad situation, but keep in mind, at the center of all that is one person who makes a decision. Because the district attorney could just as easily say, I've investigated this, and I'm choosing to terminate the prosecution. But if that doesn't happen, you're going through the court system. And that's why it is the most powerful position in our district, period.
And in other districts around the world.
Well, can't say around the world. I mean, I don't know what anybody else does, but in the United States, most jurisdictions have something similar to what we have. In Tennessee, it is the most powerful. In Tennessee, it is the most powerful position, period.
All district attorneys' offices in Tennessee are pretty much run the same.
They are exactly the same.
How many districts are there?
We have a lot of multi-county districts. I think there's 26 maybe. We have 95 counties, but Knox County is a single county, Blount County,
so
Anderson
maybe
County.
Only 26 for 95?
Well, because you have districts with multiple counties. Like the 10th Judicial is 4. The 9th Judicial is 4.
That's a lot of people, isn't it?
Well, it's a lot of people, but it's a lot of territory.
And a lot of stuff on the books.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think we have...
What do you do in your cases? What do you do in the cases like through here, and then you get a new district attorney? Does a new district attorney maybe might look at all of them different, I guess?
Sure.
Do they have that authority, or is it already water over the dam?
No. You absolutely have the authority to go back through all of it and look at it. And quite frankly, I intend to do that. All of them. Every last one of them. There is a massive amount of cases that are pending going through the grand jury. We have a large backlog of cases waiting to go to the grand jury. I'm going through all of them because I know from having represented people that some of those cases never should have left Sessions Court and certainly should not be going to the grand jury. Now, I guess it's a good thing for some of these people that their case left Sessions Court, but they've never been indicted. But their case is still out there and it's still pending. So no, I intend to go through all of them, every one of them in all 4 counties, and do what I just said. What does justice require here? And that's what's going to be done. And it will be done without fear, and it will be done without favor. And I mean, that's what's required. That's the job. As you said, it's like concrete finishing. I can't finish concrete, but I can look at an offender and I can tell you, this might be somebody we need to do something with, or this ain't somebody that we need to waste a whole lot of time on, figure something out, because there's a wide range of things that you can do. I mean, it's not cookie cutter. You don't have to do everything the same way with each person. There's all kinds of things that you can do. You know, one of the things that people don't like is people talk about probation. All right, they don't like probation. Well, why'd they get probation? If you don't have probation, you're not going to spend a dime on anything other than your prisons. And again, you have to go back. There are people who they'll never reoffend anyway. Their likelihood of reoffending is ridiculously low as a statistical matter. Those are the people you stick on probation. Hey, listen, stay out of trouble, right? We're going to keep having these people watch you to make sure you stay out of trouble.
That's what probation's for, right?
That is what probation is for, because here's something else. Nobody talks about this, but it's true. If you take a person who falls within the 18 to 25 range and you put that person into jail for longer than 6 months, you are running a very, very, very high risk that person will break the norm of 18 to 25 and will continue to reoffend. All right? You have in effect made them into a criminal because you have removed them from whatever social support structures they have. You've isolated them with a bunch of criminals, and you have changed the way society looks at that person. All right? That person may very well continue to commit offenses, and depending on what is going on with them, may commit more and more and more violent offenses. So you've literally made your streets less safe. Your cookie cutter play sheet may have been followed, but you've made our community less safe. Those decisions right there are hard decisions, but they have to be made because there are consequences. The whole tough on crime, right? We're tough on crime. Well, if you take somebody who would have come out on the other side of this criminal episode and you never heard from them again, and because you wanted to appear tough on crime, you incarcerated them, and now you have 30, 40, 50 years of antisocial behavior from that person.
In a sense, you're not tough on crime.
You're not smart on crime. You may be tough on crime, but you made your community, you may appear to be tough on crime, but you made your community less safe. All right? You're not being smart on crime. If you've put this person over here, 6 months in jail may look good on a stat sheet, but did you make the community less safe? That's the question. Nobody talks about that because again, that's not a 30-second soundbite, right? Mm-hmm. I mean that took me 2 minutes to explain it, but that's just a fact.
Does it remind you of that movie, that documentary, Making of a Monster? Did you ever see that?
I've never seen it. I don't. Funny story.
You need to watch that.
I cannot do true crime documentaries. I can't do it. My wife loves them.
I love them.
Well, my wife does. Watches them. It drives me nuts because I'll come in and I'll sit
Have
down.
you had it all day? It's like me. I got a faucet leaking in my bathroom.
There you go.
I can't fix it.
Well,
I've had enough.
You probably don't watch.
I can't stand it. Those were they home improve
the remodel people.
Yeah, HQTV.
There you go.
Yeah, they turn out. Here's a board that fits.
There you go. That's exactly right. So you probably don't watch that.
Yeah, no.
So that's
same thing.
Yes, that's me with that. Is I can't do it. I can't take it, and but she loves it. So I have not seen it.
I tell you what, you have impressed me.
Well, I don't know about that, but here's the thing. My wife is mad that I'm running for district attorney. She is mad, and
at least she's got a reason.
well, she's got plenty more reasons, but she's mad about that one. But I told her, I had some people come see me, and their child had been killed, and the district attorney was not going to let the grand jury hear the case, and they came to me, and they sat down, and the mom was just, tears were just pouring, and she said, "You used to be a prosecutor. We want you to do this. We want you to prosecute the person responsible for our child's death." And I said, I can't. I said, it's not what I do. I'm just a lawyer in private practice. And she said, yeah, but you were a prosecutor. You know how to do it. And I said, it doesn't work that way. And they had gotten some kind of settlement, wrongful death. And she said, we have money. We can pay. And I don't make any bones about it. I mean, I make good money in private practice. I do. I've been blessed. I'm pretty good at what I do. But she's sitting there and she's talking and tears are just pouring. And in my office, there's a collage of pictures that my wife did with my daughter. And my daughter in those pictures is about the same age as their child was. And as I'm talking to this lady, I look up there and I see my daughter's picture. And I thought, what this lady is seeing is somebody who knows how to do it, but thinks on some level that money is the problem. That they've got enough money for me to do it. And I went home and I told my wife, I said, I'm going to have to run. I said, I can't have that be the last conversation that I have with somebody who believes the justice system is failing them and is failing their child, particularly. And she understood. She is mad. She's mad at me for doing it because I had told her I'm not getting back into politics. It's, I'll help people, and I've worked on some campaigns, and I've, and I do. And if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I want to run for office, I'm all for it. People ought to run. We need good people running for office. We really do. And we need people who run for office and they don't care if they get beat in the next election or not. You make better decisions. You do. And so she's mad at me, but she's supportive of me. She goes with me to all this stuff, and she doesn't say anything. That's what she tells everybody. She's like, the hardest part of politics is not saying something when people talk bad about your husband. And I'm like, well, that's. But she does a good job with it. She's mad all the way home when we're out at stuff, and but I don't have any illusions about myself. I have the same failings as anybody else. There'll be failings as district attorney, but I don't have the desire to go to higher office. I don't have the desire to stay on the government dime. I look around, I'm not happy with what I see, and I want to make it better. And if the voters say at the next election, hey, Hatchet, good job, but we're done with you. We want somebody that is warm and fuzzy and, all that. Because I ain't. I tell people that all the time. I mean, some of the people that help me on my campaign are like, Hatchet, you're a terrible candidate. I'm like, well, I understand. They're like, it's not that you can't do the job. You're just, but that's fine. I'll go back to private practice and I'll say, you know what? This district is better. It's better than when I started. and I'll be perfectly fine with that. I won't think nothing of it, and it'll make my wife happy. So there's that.
Well, I noticed one thing. You really laid it out for me. I didn't realize it was so. You don't know what a district attorney does, but you've impressed me.
Well, I've enjoyed our chat. Plus, now I didn't realize you were in the construction trade. So now, when I need a concrete person, I'm gonna call you and ask you, hey, where's the concrete people at?
And maybe I can help. Thanks for coming.
Oh, absolutely.
I enjoyed talking to you.